All right, so let's jump right into Act 1, Scene 4 of Romeo and Juliet. We've got masked balls, we've got witty banter, the works. But what makes this scene really stand out to you?
Honestly, this scene always gives me chills. It's like Shakespeare is setting the stage, and let me tell you, he doesn't hold back on the foreshadowing.
So paint us a picture, set the scene for us. Where are we? Who's there? What's the overall vibe?
We're right outside the Capulet house. Romeo, Mercutio, and Benvolio are about to crash their party, all masked up and ready for, well, you'd think a good time, right? But there's a catch.
Romeo's not exactly feeling the party spirit.
Not at all. Remember, he's head over heels for Rosalind at this point. I have a soul of lead, he says. He's dragging himself to this party, which is a stark contrast to, say, Mercutio.
Mercutio's always ready for a good time. And that brings us to that incredible Queen Mab speech. It's like Shakespeare unleashed Mercutio just to blow our minds.
Oh, absolutely. It's classic Mercutio, playful, a little cynical, but when you really listen to what he's saying about Queen Mab and the dreams she brings,
Yeah.
things get interesting.
Okay, for those who need a quick refresher, who exactly is this Queen Mab? What's her deal?
Picture this. This tiny creature, riding in a chariot made of a hazelnut driven by a gnat. That's Queen Mab, the fairy's midwife. She's all about delivering dreams, but not always the sweet kind.
More like the nightmare before Christmas kind of dreams.
Exactly. Dreams of love for lovers, dreams of war for soldiers, dreams of money for lawyers. She's like a walking, talking representation of our desires and anxieties.
So you're saying Queen Mab is basically messing with her destiny. That's crazy. But how does this all tie back to Romeo? He's been awfully quiet during this whole Queen Mab bit.
And that's what makes his response so powerful. After Mercutio's speech, Romeo drops this line that always sends chills down my spine. He says, "I fear too early, for my mind misgives some consequence, yet hanging in the stars." He's basically predicting his own death right there, saying it's all going to be triggered by something that happens at this party.
Talk about foreshadowing. So we've got this heavy sense of doom hanging over the scene right from the get-go. It's like he's walking right into a trap and he knows it. That's intense, even for Romeo.
Right. And it really makes you wonder, does believing it will happen somehow make it come true? Is this like a self-fulfilling prophecy thing? Shakespeare was all about that, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's giving very much, be careful what you wish for.
Totally. And what's wild is that we, the audience, we're in on it. We know how this whole thing ends, but Romeo and his buddies, clueless, just marching right into the storm.
That's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You can see it coming, but you just can't do anything to stop it.
Morbid. But yeah, spot on. But that's what Shakespeare does, right? He creates this tension, this feeling of dread, even when you know what's coming. But let's get back to Romeo for a second. He goes on about the steerage of my course and like who or what is directing his path. What's he getting at there?
It sounds like he's saying there's some higher power calling the shots. He's just along for the ride, even if it ends in disaster.
Exactly. It's almost like he's challenging fate, like do your worst. And that takes us right back to that big question, fate versus free will. Does Romeo have any control over what happens, or is he just a puppet?
The million-dollar question, right? It's like Shakespeare's holding up a mirror to all of us, making us think about how much agency we really have.
Exactly. And there's no easy answer. I mean, different productions will interpret this scene in totally different ways. Sometimes Romeo's the victim, completely swept up by forces he can't control. Other times he's impulsive, reckless, making choices that lead to his own downfall.
Like that saying, we are the authors of our own misfortune.
Exactly.
And Romeo does tend to be a little dramatic, doesn't he? Big gestures, big pronouncements of love.
Which can be endearing, I guess, but also frustrating. But that's what makes him interesting, right? He's flawed, he's passionate, he's a little too quick to jump into the deep end, which, in this play, is saying something.
Right. Speaking of jumping in the deep end, what about Mercutio? He's got some thoughts on all this fate stuff too, right? He seems to brush off Romeo's premonition pretty quickly.
Oh, totally. Mercutio is team free will all the way. He's a pragmatist, the voice of reason. Remember what he says about dreams? Children of an idle brain. Basically, he thinks Romeo's letting his imagination get the best of him.
That classic clash of personalities, right? Romeo, the hopeless romantic, seeing bad omens everywhere, and Mercutio, the realist, who thinks it's all a bunch of nonsense. And then there's Benvolio. Poor, often forgotten Benvolio. What's his role in all of this? He's the one always stuck in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Trying to keep things light.
Yeah, he's like, come on, guys, lighten up, we're going to a party. Right. He's definitely the grounding force between Romeo's dramatics and Mercutio's cynicism.
So it's like a more balanced perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Benvolio, he's the one who kind of sees both sides, the power of fate, but also, we still make our own choices.
True.
It's like he's saying, hey, you guys are deep thinkers and all, but sometimes a party's just a party.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah. But of course, leave it to Shakespeare, right? A party is never just a party, especially when you've got this, like, looming sense of doom hanging over everything.
Right. Even with Mercutio's jokes, we can't shake that feeling that something bad's going to happen.
And that's the beauty of this scene, right? It's like Shakespeare's throwing these big questions at us. Fate, free will, do we really control anything? And he's not giving us any easy answers.
No answers, just leaving us hanging on the edge of our seats.
Exactly. He gives us just enough to keep us hooked. It's brilliant.
So we've got this lighthearted party atmosphere, but underneath it all, there's this current of, well, almost dread.
Absolutely, it's there. And it makes you realize this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're about to witness one of the most famous love stories ever told, filled with passion and tragedy.
And it all starts right here, with a premonition and a party invitation.
Who knew fate could be so dramatic?
Only Shakespeare. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We'll pick up next time with more drama, more intrigue, and of course, more Shakespeare. See you then.